If you think you have what it takes to make the best bracket out there, then you got to join our ESPN Bracket Challenge for the far end of the bench. We're bringing it back for 2022. One bracket this time, one bracket entry per person. Once you get signed up, you follow us on all of our social medias at FEOTB Pod. You guys can see, if you're watching on our YouTube or on the Spotify video, you can see the sign in the background. Be sure, follow us there, subscribe to our YouTube channel, sign up, and then when the brackets do come out, make sure you make your picks. Lock in your picks before the tournament starts. And if you win, you have a chance to win a $150 Visa gift card. You'll get bragging rights. You'll get a shout out from us. You might get one of the shirts that we still have hanging around for free. But we'll definitely be giving you guys a $150 Visa gift card for the winner. Whoever has the most correct teams picked in that tournament. The link is pinned currently on our social media at FEOTB Pod, on our Twitter. It was on our story on Instagram. It's also going to be in our bio on Instagram as well. So sign up today. Far End of the Bench 2022. I believe it's Bracket Challenge. If you just search FEOTB 2022 bracket, you guys should be able to find the group, or you can check out the links directly in our bios and a pin to our social media profiles. But get in on the action. Winner walks away with some cheddar this year, and that could be you. $150 could be in your pocket if you know March Madness as well as you think you do. So let's get in it, get on it, get signed up with the Far End of the Bench. Denver-based podcast, and we talked about the Broncos, talked about the offseason, a little bit with baseball. Talking about baseball, you throw in the Rockies, the Colorado Avalanche, and the Denver Nuggets. The Mile High Report. I mentioned it last week. I'm going to try and single out those two teams because they are well deserving of the honor of having their own segment. And we're going to start with the Denver Nuggets. This team, when Nico was on the show last, we were talking about it. He said a few things about where the Denver Nuggets were at that point. They were still sitting at the 6th seed in the West. They were kind of on a little bit of a slide. Facu Campazzo was on the verge of being shipped off for anything you can get in return, a box of ramen, anything like that. It was a little bit dire situation. We needed to sign DeMarcus Cousins. That was something, got to give Nico more so than I credit, but we called that way back when that the Nuggets needed to sign DeMarcus Cousins to a long-term contract. And last week, after I talked about it, manifested it into existence. He was signed for the rest of the season. The Nuggets coming out of a terrible All-Star break, 3 games in 4 days, 3-0, 8-0, or excuse me, now 10-0 since DeMarcus Cousins was first signed to his 10-day contract. Talk about a team that's overachieving, and the only bad thing is they're hitting their streak, they're hitting their stride, and the teams in front of them in the playoff race are also doing the same thing. I think Dallas and Utah are the two teams in front of them. Utah is 7-3 in their last 10, and Dallas is 8-2 in their last 10. So even though the Nuggets are on this crazy 10-game winning streak, they have not been able to move any further up. They are still out of the play-in tournament, which I think is key. They don't want to be in a situation where they have to play any extra games, any more games than you possibly have to. That's what killed them in the playoffs for the past 2 years, even going back to the bubble. When you have 2 back-to-back series where you come back from 3-1 deficits, by the time you get to the following round and you're playing the Los Angeles Lakers in the bubble after they've gentlemen swept, I think they played 10 games through the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, and you're playing 14 already, yeah, that's not going to work out for you. I don't care who you are. You could have been the 96 Bulls, and it wouldn't have worked out. So the Denver Nuggets need to stay out of the play-in situation. There's talk, there's a little bit of rumors flying around. There's a Woj bomb dropped by Adrian Wojnarowski on Twitter that Michael Porter Jr., who has been out of action for pretty much the entire season with his back injury, is going to be cleared for practice contact here in the next couple weeks. The Nuggets did come out and say that wasn't 100% accurate. Woj might have been getting the information from Michael Porter Jr.'s agent. Either way, that's encouraging to me because, one, it shows that maybe the player is trying to put this out and take a little bit of the heat off of themselves. I don't have an issue with a player taking a little bit of the heat off of himself, and also showing, hey, I do want to get back on the court. I see what the team is doing. I see that these guys are doing what they can to try and hold us up and keep us in the position to where when I, and Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray come back, we're going to be able to hit the ground running. We're going to be fresh, get on our stride, get in a few games against some pillow soft opponents. That's the other good thing. The Denver Nuggets finished the season, I think, with the second or third easiest schedule down the stretch. In those 3 games that I just said, I was just mentioning that they won, 2 of the 3 of them were against Sacramento. I know we have some friends, our buddies at the Reserves podcast, are fans of the Sacramento Kings. I apologize, but beating the Kings is not that difficult of a task. There's a few games. Philadelphia is going to be interesting. Golden State, I think we have a couple more times. It's going to be a lot of, can you take care of business when you need to and win the games that you should win, dominate the teams that you should dominate. Oklahoma City, Sacramento, these teams that don't have business being on the same floor as you, take care of business with them, and if you can, steal a couple games and beat the 76ers. Steal a game against a higher seed opponent. That's where you start moving yourself up, and who knows, maybe you're getting a home series in the playoffs instead of being the 6th seed and having to fight your way, claw your way all the way through into the conference finals. Because when Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. get back, are we going to see bubble Jamal Murray? Are we going to see the best version of Michael Porter Jr.? God, I hope so. But you got to at least assume initially it's not going to be as pretty as we all want it to be. You got to give them time to get their feet back underneath them. But when it happens, this Denver Nuggets team, they were the number 2 seed without Jamal Murray last season in the playoffs for a long time. With all of their players, everybody 100% healthy, and the pieces that they've added with Boogie Cousins and guys that they have coming off the bench, Bones Highland has been huge, one of the better draft picks. Once again, Tim Connolly, Michael Malone show that if you draft and develop guys, you draft the right guy and you develop him in your system, he can get valuable minutes. And Bones Highland is one of those guys that didn't come in with a lot of expectation on his shoulders. He's outperformed what he was expected to do here, and now we're talking about him as a major contributor coming down the stretch. Denver Nuggets, if they are able to continue on this pace that they're on, it's not realistic, but let's just say they continue this on for a few more games, give themselves a little bit more of a cushion coming down the stretch. Teams in front of them, they're not going to stay hot forever either. That's where some movement could happen. This final portion of the regular season, it's normally not as exciting for Denver Nuggets fans. We've been used to having our seed pretty much set. It could be set. No, there could be no movement. We could move as far up as the 4 seed depending on what happens in front of us. So the Denver Nuggets are definitely on appraisal. I'll say that. Praise the Denver Nuggets, even though nobody can watch the Denver Nuggets or the Colorado Avalanche for that matter. And speaking of the Avalanche, here's what I put together today for the Colorado Avalanche. So if you think back to November 6th of 2021, the Colorado Avalanche were below 500. They were sitting at a record of 4-5-1 through their first 10 games. Since then, they are 35-5-3. They've scored 73 team points over that season, over the last 3 months of the season, and of those losses, only having the 5 losses since then. It's last season they tied the NHL record for wins in a month. This season they're on pace to score 100 points, win the President's Trophy, even though as much as I don't want them to win it. And it's a different feel than it was. Obviously, last season was a little bit of an outlier with the divisions and not playing out of conference. It's a little bit different, but last year at this time when the Avalanche were gearing up for a playoff push towards the end of the season, there was a little bit of hesitancy. Like, are we going to be able to hang with Las Vegas? Are we going to be able to hang with Tampa Bay, Carolina, Florida? These teams that are big, physical, have been good for a long time. We're kind of a young team, play a lot with speed. Do we have the grit, the grind to get through it? Last year, I didn't think that the team was ready. And this season, it seems like, with the addition of Nazem Kadri playing at an all-star caliber level once again and being your second line center and a second power play unit kind of guy, and leading the team in points and goals scored. Mikko Rantanen, Gabe Landeskog, Nathan McKinnon all having career seasons. Landeskog completely changing, instead of taking the flashy role of being a guy who shoots from the slot, he's a guy crashing the net and clearing the garbage and getting these easy goals. He's on pace to have his career high in goals for the season. This Avalanche team also has that grit and determination, especially, Curtis McDermott can't really play hockey, but he can skate around, he can throw his body around, and when he needs to, he can throw his fists. So they have that little bit of edge, that little extra piece to them, and with the skill level that their defensive core is playing at right now, you think of guys, their top 4 defensive pairings right now: Cale Makar, Devon Taves, Eric Johnson, Sam Girard. It's an abundance of riches, and you're playing in front of a goaltender now in Darcy Kemper, who has found his groove, found his positioning, found his angles behind the Colorado Avalanche defense and their forwards, and he's playing at such a high level of confidence right now. It's been since his last regulation loss, besides that 5-1 loss to Boston last week. The last time he had lost a game in regulation was November 26th, and it was 2-1 to the Dallas Stars. That was his last loss in regulation. This season, he was also 2-1 against the Las Vegas Golden Knights, and in the 2 games where the Golden Knights had Jack Eichel on the ice, Darcy Kemper held the Golden Knights to just 3 goals in those 2 games. This team has every level of their team set. Maybe they throw a surprise move at the trade deadline. I would be surprised if they do, honestly. This team seems like they have the right kind of chemistry. It's almost like if you bring somebody in at this point, I've been saying Claude Giroux from Philadelphia since the Flyers are having such a terrible season, and he's a guy who's been to the Stanley Cup Finals, wants to win a ring, and a captain on another NHL team. It's a intriguing, prospect, but if you bring a guy like that in right now, are you throwing off the dressing room? Are you throwing off the guys? Are they going to be playing differently now with a new guy in the lineup? I don't know. Tyson Jost is starting to get things going. Newhook's getting things going. The Avalanche's secondary scoring is starting to find their groove, and the team that wins the Stanley Cup is the team that comes and has primary scoring early on, but their secondary scoring is what carries them. I talked about Blake Coleman 2 seasons ago for Tampa Bay. He has the cup-clinching goal. Last season, it was a defenseman jumping up on an offensive play for Tampa Bay that won them the cup. It's not going to be easy. They're not going to sweep their way through the entire playoffs. 16-0 for the Stanley Cup playoffs has never been accomplished for a reason. It is damn difficult, damn near impossible, I would say. But this Colorado Avalanche team has what it takes to get over that second-round hump, get to the conference finals, make it to a Stanley Cup final, and who knows, when you play Tampa Bay Lightning, Florida Panthers in a 7-game series, what could happen at that point? That's where the gloves are off, the chips are down, you're throwing it all on the line, and hey, you might swing, you might connect, you might knock it out of the park, you might miss, but at least you were there and you've cleared the hurdle that a lot of people, you hear it even now, the run that the Avalanche are on, everybody wants to point out, hey, this core group of guys still has not got past the second round of the playoffs. It's true until you prove it wrong, so they have every right to say it. It's just a little frustrating, and this team seems like they're frustrated with it, and they're ready to continue this on. Nazem Kadri, for the love of God, please do not get suspended in the playoffs this year. That's all I ask. That's what I've been hoping and wishing for ever since last year when we got knocked out of the playoffs. Please let us have Nazem Kadri for that second round playoff series, and let's have these teams try and say, hey, they can't make it out of this round. I think Nazem Kadri would make a huge difference. All right. Before I get into the end and kind of wrap things up, give everybody a little bit of an update for content moving forward and a reminder about the bracket challenge. I did want to mention, it was an interesting stat that I heard over the radio, and it's incredible that we still have to deal with this. Comcast and Kroenke are still battling out, Comcast and Altitude Sports, still battling it out in Colorado. This is more of a regional topic, but it's worth saying to people who don't even live in Colorado. The Denver Nuggets TV rating shares is at a .19. That is lower than, I said regional news. I think the regional news at 8 a.m. in the morning here might get more viewership than a .19. And that is because there's blackouts. A lot of people in Colorado can't watch the channels that the Avalanche and the Nuggets play on. When the Avalanche are on ESPN Plus, I can't watch it when I'm in Colorado. It's frustrating. It's been frustrating. And the worst part about it is these are the seasons that you would be able to use to either grow the fan base currently or groom the next generation of fan bases. Think about for the Denver Nuggets, first league MVP in team history happened in a season where most of the Denver Nuggets fan base could not readily watch the game on their television set. The two best seasons since the last Stanley Cup for the Colorado Avalanche have been underneath blackouts and NHL bans, and we're not able to watch this team until the playoffs. So that's why you're glad that they're good enough to make the playoffs, but damn, it would be nice to watch a regular season game every now and then just to know who the guys are on the ice. Luckily, they're good enough now that they get national games, but when they're not good enough, if this blackout is still in place and they're not good enough to get on these national television games, we're losing fans at that point in sports that already need as much attention and as much effort that people can give to them in the first place. Those are the teams. This has been a Broncos town forever. They're the first professional sports team here. They're probably going to be the last professional sports team here. Everything else can move on. The Denver Broncos will never leave Colorado. The Avalanche and the Nuggets both need to build up that foundation, and these are the years where you gain a rabid following. And right now, the only people that are watching the Colorado Avalanche are guys like myself, guys like Nico, guys that watch hockey, like love to watch hockey and sit down and will watch even a game that's not their team. And it's a difficult, unfortunate circumstance, and it's one that we've been having to deal with for a couple years now, and it doesn't look like it's going to end. They're doing their best impression of the MLB and MLBPA when they talk between Comcast and Altitude Sports. But unfortunately, it looks like we're going to continue to be deprived of the best seasons in the Nuggets and Avalanche history.